Okay, I just ran into the stint of Gene Keys, and I am right now looking through the Gene Keys for myself, and I was thinking that maybe I would just read the information that's in the Gene Keys and share it on here now. Okay, so that's what I'm doing now, but I'm not doing it in any sort of order. I'm actually starting with shit that's for me. So the first one that I'm doing is actually based on my radiance, what keeps me healthy. But it's the 27th gene key. There are 64 gene keys, and this is the 27th. And what part I'm doing of the 27th gene key is the first part, or the shadow of the gene key. And the shadow of the 27th gene key is selfishness. And each and every gene key is within each and every one of us, but based upon when we're born is when is determinant of which gene keys are more active within us, and like the almost life path we have. It would coincide with life path number, analogical or numerological number, and astrology, and then fucking human design. It would all, like, the way I look at these things is that they all connect, they all interconnect. So the 27th gene key, the 27th shadow, selfishness, the mathematics of love and selfishness. The 27th gene key is truly vast in its implications at a planetary level. It governs the structure of the food chain, the preservation of gene pools, both human and animal, and is key to understanding the precise mathematical laws that maintain an overall balance between the different species on our planet. It even controls the subtle shifts and changes underlying global climate and the weather. The ancient Chinese called this 27th hexagram the I Ching, nourishment. With good reason. It represents a built-in planetary law that rules all sentient life. To give is to receive. Seen from a higher level of frequency, the 27th shadow of selfishness is a distortion of this fundamental law. When we look at nature through a macrocosmic lens, we see that all the different systems on this planet are interconnected. All life forms and matter, both organic and inorganic, are essentially porous at the subatomic level. There's an entire mathematics of giving and receiving that unites all forms and is primarily based upon food. We are using the word food here in the broadest possible sense. If you are a bacteria, for example, your definition of food might be anything from gasoline to wood. The point is that your life is a living chain of birth and decay, of creatures living off each other and transforming one thing's death to another thing's birth. At the profoundest level, nothing exists unless it can be eaten by something else. We might refer to this principle within the 27th gene key as hologenetic. It is present in all creatures at a genetic level, but can also be replicated as a set of laws governing any and every system of life. In humans, for example, this law forms a basic thread of our morality, of what we consider good and bad. This 27th shadow of selfishness, in particular, is labeled as morally bad or undesirable. Through the 64 gene keys, however, all morality can be understood as simply the movement of frequency through a certain archetype. Seen in this subjective way, there is no moral agenda. The 64 shadows are not bad, even though their external manifestations are usually labeled so. All forms on our planet are constantly evolving in frequency. So among humans, we see higher frequencies dominating in some places and lower frequencies in others. Selfishness is where the 27th gene key begins its evolutionary journey in humans. The so-called selfish gene has been a requirement for us to survive, particularly for blood ties and close genetic groupings. However, selfishness must be transcended in order for the next form to mutate out of this existing form of Homo sapiens. This is how the mathematics of nature works. As the frequency within a species reaches its zenith, it pushes and stretches that form to make a quantum leap. For some time, the new form needs the care of the old form, even though, ironically, the new form will ultimately eradicate the old form. Selfishness, then, is a stage in our evolution that is in the process of being transcended at a collective level. If it weren't, humans would die out. This is not a question of morality. It is a question of evolution. When we look out at our world today, particularly through the world media, we have a tendency to focus on the negative aspects of life. That is due to the general low frequency of mass consciousness. But as a collective body, we humans have already ascended far beyond individual or tribal selfishness. The structures that we have built in our society create opportunities for so many more people to be fed and nourished than ever before. It is true that an enormous amount of the world population still lives in poverty and suffers from malnutrition, just as it is true that selfishness is primarily responsible for this. However, collectively, we've moved a long way from being monkeys. Even so, the current human vehicle is still designed for selfishness. It is not easily suited to the higher frequencies. It is still relatively rare for humans to raise the frequency of their genetics, even to the gift level, let alone the acidic level. Thus, our species must prepare itself to make the genetic quantum leap, because that is the only way that it can truly transcend its built-in selfishness. By viewing selfishness in this way, perhaps we humans can begin to see through to the high frequencies of the 27 gene key. Selfish acts cause devolution, whereas selfless acts cause evolution. If we add to this a further equation from nature's mathematics, we will see that the 27th shadow of selfishness is equal to purposelessness. This equation is created out of the twin binary of the 27th shadow and its programming partner, the 28th shadow of purposelessness. This binary coding leads to a dead end. Selfishness does not pay well since it makes us imporous rather than porous. In the long run, it closes down the possibility of our being nourished, whether by food or love. Selfishness cuts off from the collective, even though it may ensure individual survival. In order for our species to take the next evolutionary leap, survival must become absolutely communal. As an aspect of the chemical family known as the ring of life and death, the 27th shadow reminds us of the cosmic forces of creation and destruction. Every shadow is destructive and leads to death, whereas every gift leads to life. It is only at the highest acidic level that the life and death are finally transcended. Each of the codon groups functions collectively across the entire gene pool to establish a field of frequency that pervades and influences the whole planet. Because the 27th shadow is bound to the other gene keys in this codon ring, it is easy to see the true nature of selfishness. Through the 24th shadow, we can see how addictive it is. Through the 3rd shadow, how it sets up chaos, and through the 20th shadow, how it requires an absence of basic human awareness. Through the 23rd shadow, we can see how complicated selfishness makes life. And finally, through the 42nd shadow, how it is rooted in the false expectation that it will bring an end to suffering.